Okay, so could she be the next leader of the free world? That's the question on everyone's mind as we delve into the life and career of Kamala Harris for today's deep dive.
And it's a fascinating question, isn't it? Her story is anything but typical. I mean, we're talking about the first female Black and Asian American vice president in U.S. history, someone who's shattered glass ceilings with almost every step she's taken.
Exactly, and now she's vying for the presidency. We've got excerpts from her Wikipedia page, and let me tell you, it's packed with intriguing details. I can't wait to unpack this journey with you.
It's important to understand the context, right? Where she came from, what shaped her worldview. These all offer clues about the kind of leader she might be.
Absolutely. So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. Kamala Harris was born in Oakland, California. Picture this. Her parents were immigrants, her dad from Jamaica, her mom from India, who met, get this, during the Civil Rights Movement. Talk about a meet-cute with a side of social justice.
It's no coincidence that activism became a recurring theme in her life. That kind of upbringing instilled a deep sense of purpose and a passion for fighting for what you believe in.
Totally. And her mom, a renowned biologist specializing in breast cancer research. You can only imagine those dinner table conversations. Talk about a house full of brilliant minds.
It speaks volumes about the value placed on education and intellectual curiosity in her family. This wasn't just about book smarts, though. Harris was honing her leadership skills early on, attending Howard University, a historically Black college.
And not just attending. She dove right into leadership roles, becoming a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Then it was off to UC Hastings College of the Law, where she continued on that path, becoming president of the Black Law Students Association.
A clear pattern emerges, wouldn't you say? This was a woman driven to lead, to make a difference. And that drive led her straight into a career that's, well, let's just say it's as impressive as her background.
Oh, absolutely. She starts out as a deputy district attorney in Alameda County, a solid start, right? But Kamala Harris, she's not one to rest on her laurels. She sets her sights on becoming San Francisco district attorney.
And of course makes history again, becoming the first woman and person of color to hold that office. But this was just the beginning. She aimed even higher, becoming California's attorney general, another first for a woman and person of color.
Talk about breaking barriers. Now her time as a prosecutor is particularly interesting, especially considering where she is now. Sources describe her style as tough on gun crimes. She meant business.
Right, and this is where we start to see how her experiences shaped her approach to policy. She wasn't just about punishment, though. She created a hate crimes unit, recognizing the need for specialized attention to those issues.
And she implemented reentry programs for nonviolent offenders. Clearly, she was thinking about rehabilitation and giving people a second chance.
It's a more nuanced approach than some might expect, given the tough on crime label. And it speaks to a certain pragmatism, a desire to address complex issues with a combination of firmness and compassion.
Now, it's worth mentioning that her record on criminal justice reform has drawn criticism. Some argue that her approach wasn't progressive enough.
And it's a valid point. Her stance on these issues has sparked debate, revealing the complexities of her political identity. It's something to keep in mind as we delve deeper into her journey.
Definitely adds another layer to the story. So from prosecutor to politician, a path well-trodden, right? But Kamala Harris, she doesn't just walk this path, she blazes right through it.
In 2016, she wins a U.S. Senate seat, becoming, you guessed it, the second Black woman and the first South Asian American to serve in that chamber. A trailblazer in every sense of the word.
And once she got to the Senate, she wasn't about to sit quietly in the background. She dove headfirst into championing crucial issues: gun control, the DREAM Act, cannabis legalization, healthcare reform, you name it. She was on the front lines.
This is where she truly steps onto the national stage, becoming a recognized voice on these critical issues.
Yeah.
And let's not forget her time during those Senate hearings. Those were some memorable moments, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely. Her questioning of Trump administration officials. Legendary. Remember her exchange with Jeff Sessions where he actually admitted her line of questioning made him nervous? Classic Kamala.
That's a perfect example of her ability to command attention, to cut through the noise and get straight to the heart of the matter. Her sharp intellect and unwavering determination were on full display.
She had this knack for asking the tough questions, for holding people accountable. I mean, her questioning of Brett Kavanaugh during his Supreme Court confirmation hearings. Riveting.
Those were pivotal moments, solidifying her reputation as a force to be reckoned with, someone who wouldn't back down from a challenge. And this, of course, brings us to 2020 and her own presidential aspirations.
Right. She had a lot of early momentum, even clashing memorably with Biden during a debate. But ultimately, she had to withdraw due to lack of funds. Still, that decision set the stage for what came next.
a plot twist, you might say, because her withdrawal paved the way for her selection as Joe Biden's running mate. Talk about a historic moment. It thrust her back onto the national stage in a completely different role.
And the rest, as they say, is history. But let's unpack that history a bit further when we return for the second part of our deep dive into the incredible journey of Kamala Harris. So when we left off, she had just been chosen as Biden's running mate.
Yeah, a really historic moment.
Huge! And now we know how that election turned out.
We do indeed.
But becoming VP, it's not just about the campaign trail.
Right?
It's a whole different ballgame once you're in office.
Oh, absolutely. There's governing to be done, decisions to be made.
Exactly. And for Kamala Harris, that meant stepping into a role that no woman, no Black person, no Asian American had ever occupied before.
And let's not forget those tie-breaking votes in the Senate. With a 50-50 split, she really had to step up.
She really did. And from what I read, she cast more tie-breaking votes than any other VP in history.
That's right. She was a decisive voice on some really critical issues.
And then there was that time when President Biden was undergoing a medical procedure.
Right.
And she became the first woman to assume presidential powers.
Even if it was for a short time, it was a powerful symbol of how far we've come.
Absolutely. But symbolism aside, she also had a very specific set of tasks related to some pretty thorny issues, like immigration.
Yeah, the Biden administration put her in charge of addressing the root causes of migration from Central America.
Talk about a challenge.
Right. It's a complex issue with a long history. And it's something that previous administrations had struggled with as well.
And then there was that do not come message that caused such a stir.
Right. It sparked a lot of debate about the tone of immigration policy.
And whether it was compassionate enough.
But it also showed that she wasn't afraid to be direct to address these issues head on.
For sure. And on the world stage, too. She had some high-profile moments.
Like her interactions with France.
Yeah.
Remember that whole submarine deal? And then the response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, she really was thrust into the global spotlight.
And through it all, she demonstrated a certain resilience, a capacity for handling those high-pressure situations.
It seems like all those different parts of her background, being a prosecutor, a senator, it all kind of prepared her for this moment.
It's almost like all those threads were woven together.
Leading her right here.
To this point in history.
Speaking of which, let's talk about the 2024 election, with Biden deciding not to run again.
He's the Democratic nominee?
Yeah, talk about a historic development.
It really is. I mean, we're potentially looking at the first female president of the United States.
And one who's already had such a profound impact on American politics.
Right, and she's chosen Tim Walz as her running mate, the governor of Minnesota.
Interesting choice. What did you make of that?
Well, it seems like a strategic move to shore up support in the Midwest.
And appeal to a broader base of voters.
Exactly. So it'll be fascinating to see how the campaign unfolds.
But beyond the horse race aspects of it all, I'm really curious about her stance on the issues.
Yeah, what's her vision for the future of the country?
Right. What does a Kamala Harris presidency actually look like?
Well, on many issues like abortion rights, LGBTQ+ rights, climate change, her views are very much aligned with Biden's platform.
So it's fair to say that in many ways, a vote for Harris is a vote for a continuation of the Biden agenda.
To a certain extent, yes. But she's also staked out some of her own positions, particularly on economic policy.
Right. I've heard her proposals described as more populist.
Exactly.
Right.
With a focus on addressing income inequality and providing economic relief to working families.
So it'll be interesting to see how she navigates that balance between staying true to the party's core values and also putting her own stamp on things.
It's a tightrope walk, for sure.
But you know what they say about tightrope walkers?
What's that?
They have to have a good sense of balance.
That they do.
And it seems like Kamala Harris has been balancing different identities, different roles throughout her entire career.
It's true. And that ability to navigate complexity, to bring together different perspectives, that's going to be crucial as she tries to unite the country and lead it into the future.
But before we get ahead of ourselves and delve into those potential futures, I think it's important to take a step back.
Okay.
And get a sense of who Kamala Harris is beyond the political stage.
Right, because behind every politician,
every leader
is a person
with their own unique story.
Their own personal journey.
So let's take a closer look at the woman behind the title. The experiences and influences that have shaped her into the leader she is today. So we've been talking about Kamala Harris's journey in the political sphere, but every public figure has a personal side, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's important to consider how those personal experiences shape their worldview.
For sure. So let's delve into that a bit. What do we know about Kamala Harris, the person beyond the politician?
Well, for one thing, she's a wife and a stepmom. She married Doug Emhoff back in 2014.
Oh, yeah, he's an entertainment lawyer.
That's right.
Yeah.
And she became Momola to his 2 children.
I love that, Momola. It's so endearing.
It really is. It speaks to a warmth and a sense of family that I think is really important.
Absolutely. And her faith is a big part of her life, too, isn't it?
It is. She's a devout Baptist.
Which I imagine provides a sense of grounding a moral compass.
Right. And then there's her involvement with the Lynx.
The Organization for Black Women.
Exactly. It's a reminder of the importance of community, of supporting and uplifting others.
Absolutely. And, we've talked about her serious eye, her sharp intellect, but we can't forget about her laugh.
Oh, yeah. It's infectious, isn't it?
Remember that clip where she's talking about climate change? And she says, "You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?"
I do. It's such a great moment.
Mm-hmm.
It shows her humor, her ability to connect with people on a human level.
And that's a really important quality for a leader to have.
Right.
That ability to connect, to inspire.
Absolutely. Because leadership is about more than just policy positions. It's about understanding people, relating to them.
Exactly. And I think Kamala Harris's story really speaks to that idea of connection, of bridging divides.
It does. She's the daughter of immigrants, a woman of color, someone who's broken barriers in so many ways.
And now she's vying to become the first female president of the United States.
It's an incredible story. No matter what your political beliefs are, you have to admit that's pretty remarkable.
It really is. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Right, we've explored her background, her career, her personal life.
But the future is still being written.
So keep asking questions, keep engaging with the issues.
And keep learning, because that's how we make sense of the world around us.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday we'll look back on this moment and say, we were there at the start of something truly historic.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.